Yeah, I guess so. All right, I'm gonna start flapping my gums. So here it goes. First of all, thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to try to make this lengthy, but I have a real problem with spitting this out real quick. I've talked about this show for 2 years now, so I can really just kind of nail it out. But I'm going to do my very best to make this entertaining. So I'm just going to start with how this whole project started. Around the end of 2019, I was on the roof of the Bunker Center for the Arts, patching holes in the roof, as I often do during the warm months. And I looked off the side of the building, and Sean Smith, who was a homeless man who lived underneath the Highway 71 overpass on 19th Street, just a few hundred feet from our front door, had moved his campsite to the side of our building. So I saw it. I thought the image was absolutely gorgeous. The composition was amazing. So I sent a few pictures thinking, oh, this will make a great painting. And I brought the image back into my studio and blew it up to take a look at how I might interpret this image. And it turned out that Sean was actually in the picture. I didn't realize it at the time when I took the picture, but this is his leg poking out right here. This is his other foot. He's kind of wrapped up like a burrito and his arms over his face. And at that point, I realized, this changes everything. This is no longer just an abstract composition. This is not just an object of beauty, but this is a story. This is a man whose privacy is being invaded. This is a man who this is voyeuristic in nature. And this is a man who is, by our standards, disadvantaged, literally being looked down upon by a person of privilege. And that changed everything for me. So this image, it tells a hell of a lot more than what I envisioned when I first took that photograph. So there are 3 of them here. I don't know if I know the camera's not showing it, but there's 3 of these here. And this is Sean Smith's campsite. And Sean has been a really great neighbor to us. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and carry this around. So this is Sean right here. Before I did this image of his campsite, I had done this portrait with Sean. He sat for me. He was always very positive. That as a sucker in his hand. Yes, he had rainbow socks. He was always very positive. He was a really cool dude. And I just really, he meant a lot to me. He was a friend and a neighbor. And to be able to kind of capture his life and how he was doing things, I thought was, kind of a good testament to my role as an artist, capturing almost social realism, if you will. So that's how this happened. The thing about Sean is he never felt like he was homeless. Sean was very proud, very happy. He did a really great job of, raising my spirits when he came by. He brought me food. I was not homeless. He was. He brought me food. Sean did not feel like he was suffering. Sean felt like he was living his best life. He was very proud of the situation. He had an outlook on his situation I think that we all need to kind of pay attention to and think about, because we also have, and I'm just going to point this right up my face and see how this goes. So, would you? Okay, thanks. I know my arms are not long enough. So that was Sean. Sean, felt like he was living his best life. Sean did not accept any of the help that we offered him. This was Sean's home. So On the other side of that, the flip side of that, about the time that I finished this series, we were just heading into the beginnings of COVID, when we all thought we were going to die and everything was very scary. Excuse me. On the other side of this wall, where he had camped, Sean had his abundance, he had his wealth, he had his things that made him proud. On the other side of that wall, I had these refrigerator doors. This is the actual refrigerator door at the Bunker Center for the Arts where I was living. And I had started using Instacart to buy my groceries. So I was literally paying someone less fortunate than me during a pandemic to go to the store and risk their health to get my groceries for me. It's really gross. So I would tip 100%, but I would send this poor person to go risk their health for me. I started this image when I was 20. When I was 20 years old, I did a painting of the interior of my refrigerator door. I was a 20-year-old artist. You can imagine it was probably pretty empty. The refrigerator door in my 20s is actually in the collection of Chris Packham in New York City right now. And it was basically an empty refrigerator door with a bag of IGA brand flour, Always Save, spaghetti sauce, Best Choice pickles, and a little container of the package that you get from Taco Bell, the condiments, because I was that poor. If I was going to have a gourmet meal that night, I was going to put that taco sauce on the potato, and that's where I was 30 years ago. So if 20-year-old TJ can see the refrigerator now that I have, you know, I've probably been a lot less depressed in my 30s. But, you know, this is my abundance. This is my wealth. I actually have a refrigerator full of giant Costco-sized things. I actually have all of this food. And for me, that's a big deal. Like, oh, wow, I really made it. Now, again, just like with Sean, we look at his work, or his life, and we're like, oh, that poor guy, he's suffering, he's disadvantaged. But he, in his mind, is not. He's quite wealthy. He's on top of his game. Similarly, you know, people look at this refrigerator door and like, well, but your fridge only has one door. Oh my God, you poor thing. You know, I had a person who came into the bunker one time. Obviously a collector, very, very well off, and somehow she deduced that I live in the bunker. And she's like, so do you have an apartment here? I'm like, oh, no, I sleep in my studio. And her response was so repulsed. She literally looked like, oh, and I'm talking to you? Disgusting, you know? I could just, you know, and I have a very full fridge, but I live at 19th and Troost, and I sleep on a couch. It folds out into a bed, but sometimes I don't. You know, that's my wealth. I'm doing quite well. So I have this food, I have these things. This is my abundance. But from somebody else's perspective, I'm not doing very well. Just like from our perspective, Sean's not doing very well. But the truth is, it's all in your head. It's social stratification. It is what you understand about your situation that is formed by your perspective, from where you've been, where you're going. So that's kind of why I picked these only two images to bring into our understanding of what it means to be a have and a have-not. What does that mean to us? You know, because again, he's on top of his game, I'm on top of my game, but somebody else, we're both at the bottom. You really it's all in your head. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack with this show, with socioeconomic stratification, symbolic interactionism, how we perceive the reality around us. Additionally, most of my work has a tendency to lean towards social commentary. Obviously, a homeless man, that's a pretty obvious image. Literally what we would consider a pile of garbage with a human being in the middle of it. Well, what does that say about what we do with people in our society? The people at the bottom rung, how much do we take care of them? We are the richest nation in the history of civilization. That's outside my door. I think that is an image that should last. I think it's an image that we should be reminded of for a long time. Similarly, the refrigerator doors, the Renaissance still lifes that you see at the Nelson Atkins. They have this, they always have like the citrus fruit and the lamb and the salmon, and those are symbols of wealth. These are, if you could afford to have citrus fruit during the Renaissance, you're doing really well. And so you're going to pay somebody to do a painting of you and your citrus fruit. That's how great you're doing. And these, when you think about how climate change is affecting us, how our quality of life is most likely going to decrease globally and locally in the short term. I think in 100 years, people are going to look at these refrigerator door paintings and be like, wow, they really had it going on. Oh wow, they were rich. Look at that, And it's probably the case. I mean, imagine 100 years from now, we haven't addressed global warming. We haven't addressed the climate catastrophe that's facing us. So yeah, I think that these paintings are kind of a testament to the quality of life that we have, but also consumerism. Like, look at all the plastic in there, there's a lot of heavy stuff there. And consumerism is such an easy one to go with, because that's always so popular in art. But boy, doesn't it just scream, thinking about how much we throw away and how many people we throw away. And I don't know, there's a lot to unpack with that. I think I just spit out everything when you think about this for a second. I don't know. I think that pretty much sums it up. It's really a matter of the human condition and consumerism and economic stratification, what it means to be a have and a have-not. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about the process of making these images, because this is a new step for me. I'm normally a painter, typically oil painter. This is all water-based media, and then of course like some water-soluble graphite, charcoal, things like that. But when the city first went into lockdown at the Bunker Center, we had a break-in late at night. Somebody broke in at 2 o'clock in the morning, broke our front door out, and helped themselves to some of the things in our front lobby. And I live there under 24/7 security, and it was kind of terrifying. So before we could get a gate put on the front of the building, I just moved my studio out into the front lobby, and I wound up sleeping days and working nights. So all night long, I was awake out in the front lobby to make sure nobody else came in until I could get that gate done. And while I did that, I taught myself screen printing through the power of YouTube. And what little bit I remembered from Mary Lyndall Carrier, my high school art teacher, I was able to figure out how to expose screens and do screen printing and start applying that into my art. And I was a big fan of the Robert Rauschenberg piece that we have at the Nelson Atkins. And I always liked that the geometric shapes and then like the photographic image, but then the big blur of the color. And that always had a big impact on me. And so when I started doing this, when I started doing that screen printing, I was like, okay, I can pull some Robert Rauschenberg here if I work really hard. So that's why you see this like intense detail on the pillow, the lettering here, and the sign. That's why you see on the refrigerator doors, you can read some of the labels. Those are all screen printed. But for the most part, I would really just put the paper up and just kind of attack it with whatever was water soluble. I'd lay down layer upon layer upon layer. I got really good at doing translucent and transparent layers of screen printing. So that kind of defined how I was going to address all of these pieces in this show. I think this is probably how I'm going to continue doing it. If you look at the painting of Sean, it's just a straight up portrait. I brought him into the gallery, had him sit for me, and we did a quick painting. That was before I was doing the screen printing. And then after that, you can see, how it started to take more and more of a role onto how I execute these images. Pretty sure that's everything. Does anybody have any questions?
You had referred to Sean in the past tense for a while in your talk. I just wanted to see if you knew if he was okay.
I don't.
So the water-based media that you're using, is this reflecting your concern about environment?
No, it is completely selfish. My studio, where I sleep, I wind up breathing a lot of fumes overnight. I literally sleep in a room with like buckets of solvents and mediums. So no, this was more about self-preservation, to be honest with you. I also like that it dries quickly. There's a lot of things I'm learning about water-based stuff that kind of helps me because I've oil painted since I was in my 20s. Now that I'm working in watercolored or water-based media, I'm able to, do more translucent stuff, and it can dry. If it's not bright, I can just keep going over it, do layers, and yeah, it just kind of lends itself to what I need to do right now. Yeah.
What's going on in the studio now?
Thank you for asking. Okay, so these papers that I use, this is Strathmore, I want to say it's 800, maybe 400, archival, really thick paper, so thick you can sand it. It's the greatest thing ever. So I have taken that roll, which is 42 inches wide, turned it on its side, and I've got 11 feet long piece, and that is going to be a studio interior. So when you can put your camera on the panoramic mode, you can do a long panorama and you get that weird distortion. I'm going to have an 11-foot long. I have to wait till after the show's over because all these paintings I'm going to bring back into the studio, line up against the wall, so it looks really cool. And then I'm going to have an 11-foot long painting of my studio. Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Well, you don't get to bring back all of them.
I know. I have a show booked in Lincoln, Nebraska for next year.
Ooh.
And I just looked at the map of the room, and like 2 of the walls are only 15 feet long. I'm like, I got you. Yeah, so I'm going to bring them 2 pieces.
Can you talk about the adhering paper to board process?
Yeah, I sure can. Okay, so.
And how easy and painless that was.
Okay, so yeah, so all of these pieces were executed. I did everything backwards. All of these pieces were executed on paper, pinned up on the wall. And the idea was that we were just going to show it either pinned up on the wall or use pneumatic nails to like imply a frame on the wall. And the closer we got to the show, I was like, I think I can pull this off. I can probably mount all of this stuff and make it so that you don't have to frame it. So what I did was I made, everything is mounted on a birch panel that's braced with maple and then sealed with GAC 100. So it's 100% archival. It's not going to warp. It's very nice and lightweight. It's really, really dense. So yeah, so I completely backwards. Let me see here. I cut the bracing pieces first, assembled them, the circular saw, cut the birch panel. Absolutely wrong way to do that. And then I was like, now I gotta stick these on here somehow. So I wound up putting just a god awful amount of gel medium right in the middle, and with a trowel, scooped it all on there as well as I could. Put the paper on, pressed it with giant pieces of plywood and all the weights that I should have been working out with, but it wasn't. Went to a better use. So now they're pressing this plywood down here. So that's why everything was able to be pressed down on there. So yeah, then they were varnished with an acrylic varnish, which is UV protected as well. So they're 100% archival. I don't recommend it, but you could splash wine on there, and if I understand correctly, it'll just drip right off. Yeah, I did a good job of making these so that you do not have to frame them.
Ooh.
But if you want to frame them, yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
I'm curious about what is the influence of the repetition for you?
Again, kind of selfish. I have the screens. I can do multiples now. And as an oil painter, I've spent so much of my career doing one good oil painting. But then people are like, do you have prints? And usually no, I don't. And even if you do, well, they're going to come out glossy in the picture sometimes. It's never as good. And, I'm like, well, now I have prints. Because now I'm printmaking, Now it's a thing. Did I ever finish that story? Like the people that broke in, and then I was using the front lobby. I didn't, did I? I just totally sorry. Okay, so yeah, so I set up my studio in the front lobby after we were broken into, and I was working nights, and then that's when I used that opportunity. Wait, yes, I did teach you to say this, didn't I?
You can say it again.
Okay, well, I'll say it again. Yeah, thank you, Miss Carrier, my high school art teacher, Mary Lindell Carrier, for teaching me that. Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I did tell you about that. Yeah, yeah, it got real weird though, because I was just all night, just screen printing away and figuring out how it was done. I actually got into like t-shirts for a little while, just because you can. But yeah, so yeah, there's that.
Did you feel like you were in a fishbowl?
Yeah, totally. And I had no idea what kind of lunacy goes on around 19th and Troost at night. There's a lot of crazy characters that really want to interact with you and shout through the window, and yeah, it got weird.
I seem to remember you had a pretty heavy-duty front door there. How'd they break it?
Yeah, they literally went across the street, got a block of concrete.
Wow.
Yeah. Now we got a gate, now it's fine. But yeah, that was messed up. Any other questions? Should I be embarrassed about this or proud?
Well, I have
Proud.
a question. How many screens are on the refrigerator doors? I mean,
God, that's a great question.
do you even have a number that you can?
I don't. I can tell you the stack is like this big. I have positives and negatives for everything. And then I have some kind of like what I call like middle of the road ones, like maybe it was too much bright, maybe it was too much dark, so I'll get one and try to get it in there. But yeah, for every square inch of the refrigerator doors, there is a positive and a negative. And then for this one, I think it was mostly positives, almost 100 exclusively. I was still learning how to do it when I did that one.
For those of us who don't know how to do it at all, what's a positive and a negative?
Okay, so like when you have the screen, your positive is going to, when you ink it through, it's going to ink through the dark stuff, like the lettering. So like the dark part of this pillow. And then the negative would be if I screened over and I did the light part of this pillow. So I have the darks and the lights for the entire thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that sometimes you leave it more ambiguous, as far as the titles of the product in the refrigerator, and then other times it's more like all the little ingredients. And I think that's what's so fun about each of the different studies is that you've approached it in, this limited way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I just want to imply what's there, you know, and not necessarily explain what's there. Some of these I took a really weird look. These two together I like seeing, because that one we're looking at right now was very airy and ethereal and a lot of like water-based, not charcoal, graphite. And then this one over here was much heavier, and I actually had a 42-inch stick. Well, it was the roll that this paper came on, the 42-inch cardboard stick, and I took a piece of compressed charcoal and taped it to the end, and actually stood 42 inches away and like drew it in. And I knew that would generate, you know, activity, you know, energy, if you will. And so then I wouldn't have to screen in too much, but just like a little tiny bit, something that's really recognizable, I think was kind of the way to go for that.
We get a lot of questions about the graphite. It's graphite putty too, right?
Yeah, graphite putty, powdered graphite, and water-soluble graphite sticks.
I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, God, I want to say it's Artfit. You know, is it Artfit?
I think it's
Yeah. Shelly and I sent pictures back to each other. Look what I just figured out.
I said, not part of the rock.
Yeah, we figured that one out together. Yeah. I highly recommend it. It is literally, I took, as an example, the graphite putty. Okay, you can take it dry and you can draw with it and you'll get like a charcoal line, basically. You can also take the same putty, same shape, dip it in some water and do it again, and it's like a paintbrush.
That's cool.
It is black and velvet and soft. Oh, it is gorgeous. Yeah. So, yeah, this one is a lot of that. The water soluble and the non-water soluble, just to see what I could see make happen. And I just, you know, I love that kind of thing. Yeah, that's a medium that I'm going to stick with. I fell in love with it so much. This is done almost entirely with the water soluble graphite. So this one, like where it looks like you have almost that like acid etching, you know, when you see it in lithographs. That's just a brush dipped in that powder and then hit with some water and brushed in. And you can just do layer upon layer upon layer. Whoever invented that stuff's genius.
And then that one you said you had the spray varnish, right? Because
yeah. Any of them that had like a water soluble anything, I literally had to put on a respirator and gas the entire thing with Fix-A-Tip first until literally the room was a cloud. Like seriously, the room was completely just a cloud. But I had my respirator on, and so the entire can went on this, and I let that dry for a few hours, and then came back and varnished over it. So now it's safe. Yeah. But yeah, it's like making a watercolor into an acrylic painting, basically. Any other questions?
Internet, any questions? Nope.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for coming so much.
I got one question.
Yeah.
The next ones, are you gonna make them in normal order, or are you gonna continue to do them backwards?